Fair is foul, and foul is fair, hover through the fog and filthy air. Picture it, a storm-battered moor in medieval Scotland. Rain lashes the earth, mist coils around ancient stones, and through the gloom emerge three twisted shapes, cloaked and crooked. Witches. They circle, whispering in voices that seem to echo in the very air itself. Their chant is not just sound, but a spell, blurring the line between good and evil. Fair is foul, and foul is fair. It's a warning that nothing ahead can be trusted. Lightning lights up the sky, revealing their outstretched hands and hollow eyes. Then, darkness. Silence. Shakespeare opens Macbeth not with a hero, but with prophecy, with thunder, with magic, and with malice. From the very first moments of the play, we are plunged into a world where truth is slippery and fate wears a crooked smile. As the witches vanish into mist, they leave behind a chilling promise. This will be a story of darkness. Hello and welcome to this special edition of Study Sessions. Now, this is an episode specifically for Year 9, and it's designed to support you in your completion of the exam preparation booklet. Now, even though you've not actually started the study of Macbeth, we wanted you to get a head start. And so there are questions all about Macbeth in the exam preparation booklet. And by listening to this podcast, it's going to give you the knowledge, the information that you need to answer them and be really, really successful. The other benefit of listening to the podcast is it's going to help you get started really quickly. You're going to feel really confident about the first act through listening to this episode, so that when you start on the studying class, you're going to be able to understand exactly what's going straight away, rather than that sometimes maybe that initial feeling of confusion. So we're going to be walking our way through that opening act, which is what the exam is going to be focusing attention on. And we've just heard at the start of the episode that the play opens in 11th century Scotland. We've heard that we've got a storm, we've got witches, we've got mystery, all of these signals of danger and deceit. Now, audiences in 1606, when the play was first performed, were gripped. And it's worth noting that even King James I, who was king at the time the play was performed in 1606, he too believed in witchcraft. And there's widespread understanding that witchcraft is this real, serious, genuine threat. And the play is tapping into those fears, those anxieties, those feelings of paranoia. Now, in the opening, the witches plan to meet with Macbeth, the eponymous central figure of the play. Who is he? Well, we don't actually meet him straight away. In Act 1, Scene 1, we meet the witches. They open the play. In Act 1, Scene 2, we don't meet Macbeth, but we certainly hear about him. And Scotland is at war. A captain in the Scottish army tells King Duncan, who's king at the time, all about Macbeth and all about how Macbeth fought with fearless skill, slicing through the king's enemies and actually unseeming, that he's kind of cutting open with his sword, a traitor from belly to jaw. Duncan praises Macbeth and also his comrade on the battlefield, Banquo. But Duncan specifically praises Macbeth like this. He says, "O valiant cousin, worthy gentleman." Now, the traitorous Thane of Cawdor, who's been captured alive, a Thane is a little bit like a lord, he is condemned. He's betrayed King Duncan. And Macbeth, we learn, gets that title. It's a real honour to be made Thane of Cawdor. So our initial impression of Macbeth is as this violent, yes, but celebrated war hero. All of his violence is in the service of King Duncan. Then we move to Act 1, Scene 3, and this is where we finally meet Macbeth and also Banquo as well. What's interesting is that when Macbeth first enters the stage in Act 1, Scene 3, he says, "So foul and fair a day I have not seen." Now, he's not met the witches yet, but for some reason, he's using the language of the witches. It's like the witches' presence is hovering over the play already, and then Macbeth is somehow, even at that level of language itself, is being manipulated, perhaps controlled even, by the witches. And as they are in this barren heath, kind of in the middle of nowhere, they meet these three strange figures that sort of look like they shouldn't be on Earth, and yet here they are on Earth. And then they utter probably the three most important lines of the play. It's what starts the play off, really, in terms of the action of the play. They say, "All hail Macbeth! Hail to thee, Thane of Glamis." So Macbeth is currently Thane of Glamis. He doesn't know what the witches seem to know, that he's also about to be made Thane of Cawdor. So the second witch says, "All hail Macbeth! Hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor." Can the witches see into the future? Maybe. And then the final witch, Witch 3. "All hail Macbeth, that shalt be king hereafter." Now, at this pronouncement, at this prophecy, maybe, Macbeth is stunned. Banquo, his friend and comrade on the battlefield, is also curious, as in, well, you're giving him all these prophecies, what about me? And then they reply very mysteriously. They say that Banquo is going to be the father to kings, although he himself won't be one. And then they vanish. Ross, one of the other Thanes, suddenly turns up once the witches have gone, and then he says to Macbeth, "You're Thane of Cawdor, for all of your bravery on the battlefield." That first prophecy has come true. Macbeth whispers, "If chance will have me king, why, chance may crown me without my stir, without having to do anything." And so what we've got is these early stirrings of ambition, the awakening of Macbeth's ambition. If I'm Thane of Cawdor, he's thinking, and the witches, that's come true, and the witches have told me that I'm going to be king hereafter, maybe that's going to happen. Now, in Act 1, Scene 4, Macbeth meets with King Duncan, and of course, Duncan is full of thanks and praise for Macbeth. He greets him really warmly. He says to Macbeth, "I've begun to plant thee, and will labour or work hard to make thee full of growing." But we know something else is growing in Macbeth, and it's those ambitions, those desires to be king. But then, what does Duncan do? He names his son, called Malcolm, as heir, next in line. Okay, now, next in line to the throne, the official title of that is Prince of Cumberland, and Macbeth is really shaken by this. He sees Malcolm now as an obstacle, preventing him from realising his ambition, which has suddenly been awakened by the witches. He wants to be king, and then he says, as an aside, which means that the other characters on stage can't hear it, but we as the audience can. It sort of lets us peer into the mind of Macbeth, and it also allows Shakespeare to demonstrate that disparity or the difference between how Macbeth is being with people publicly and what is going on in the kind of darkness of his mind and the darkness of his heart. He says, that is a step. Think about Malcolm as almost like a step, an obstacle on which I must fall down or else overleap. I'm going to have to leap over this obstacle that's in the way of me becoming king. And then we get a great line. Macbeth is starting to hide his intentions. I've already mentioned about asides. And then he says this to the audience. Again, we can peer into his brain. He says, "Stars, hide your fires. Let not light see my black and deep desires." Now, just before this, Duncan's been using the language of light. He's been talking about stars shining down on all deservers. Duncan is associated with light and with goodness and purity and innocence, not Macbeth. Let not light see my black and deep desires, these dark and potentially evil, malevolent desires. Now we switch scene again. Now we're in scene 5 of the first act. We're at Macbeth's castle. Now, of course, Macbeth's not back home yet, but who is at home? One of the greatest characters, I'd say, in all of literature, certainly in all of Shakespeare, Lady Macbeth. And she's reading a letter that Macbeth has sent to her. She sees in this letter, where Macbeth is recounting the story of meeting the witches, she sees the promise of power. And yet she's worried about her husband, Macbeth. She says, I fear thy nature. She's saying this out loud. It's called a soliloquy. It means we can hear her thoughts, hear what's going on in her mind, in her brain. And she says, I do fear thy nature. As in, I'm kind of worried that maybe Macbeth is too kind. She says he's too full of the milk of human kindness. Now, that's a metaphor. She's feminizing her husband there, the milk of human kindness. Strange, really, because our first impression in Act 1, Scene 2 is of Macbeth, his blade smoking with bloody execution, unseeming people, cutting people up on the battlefield. Seems strange to us, perhaps, that he's too full of the milk of human kindness. But Lady Macbeth observes something about her husband, and she's kind of right. We'll find out shortly. But she is determined, and she's going to call on dark, evil spirits, evil forces, to give her the cruelty and the determination she thinks she needs. She says, come, you spirits, unsex me here, and fill me top full of direst cruelty. She wants to get rid of compassion and remorse and softness, what an audience at the time would have associated with, say, traditional femininity. When Macbeth arrives, she greets him warmly. Her words are sharp. She gives him some advice. She says, look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. Look fair, but secretly be foul. Where have we heard those words before? Lady Macbeth's got a real plan. Macbeth is hesitant, he's not sure. Lady Macbeth is already preparing for Duncan's arrival, and it's an arrival which will be ended with Duncan's death. So, Act 1, Scene 6. Duncan arrives. He walks in, praising the peaceful beauty and the air, the quality of the air of the castle. Lady Macbeth plays the perfect host. She looks like, to use her own words, an innocent flower, but we know there's a serpent lurking underneath that welcoming hostess. So she welcomes him graciously. He, King Duncan, has no idea he won't survive the night. Then we shift again. Act 1, Scene 7. Alone, Macbeth is wrestling with his conscience. This is Macbeth as that tortured, tragic hero. He does have some noble qualities, but my goodness, has he got a tragic flaw. And his tragic flaw is his ambition. For now, though, it seems like he's not going to go through with it. Maybe he is too full of the milk of human kindness. He recognises that Duncan is a good king. Macbeth should be protecting him, not killing him. If someone comes to stay with you, they're your guest. It's generally considered not being a good host if you actually murder your guest. He says, I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only vaulting ambition. It seems like he's got no impetus, no real drive to do what needs to be done, to leap over like a horse being ridden by a rider, leap over a fence, leap over an obstacle. He's only got this vaulting ambition. So he decides, I'm not going to go through with it. But Lady Macbeth intervenes. She's not done. She says to him, art thou afeard? Are you afraid to be the same in thine own act and valour as thou art in desire? She mocks him. She questions his courage. She questions his manhood, his sense of masculinity. She says to him, when you durst do it, when you promised to go ahead with our plan to kill King Duncan, to go ahead with the regicide, that is, killing a king, then you were a man. She would rather, she says, kill her own child whilst it was breastfeeding than break a promise. Her words are so powerful. It's some of the most powerful conversation interaction between two characters in all of Shakespeare. And her words shake Macbeth. She points to him. She says, "Screw your courage to the sticking place," as in, come on, dig in, be strong, be a man, and we'll not fail. Her plan is simple but ruthless. Drug the guards with a kind of sleeping drug, kill Duncan whilst he sleeps, and then smear blood and put the bloody daggers all by those guards. Blame them, frame them for the murder. Macbeth agrees. He says at the end of Act 1, Scene 7, "I am settled. False face must hide what the false heart doth know. The murder is set." So that takes us to the end of Act 1. That pretty much contains everything that we will need to know about Act 1 that's going to help us complete our exam preparation booklet questions. It shows us that tragic hero, Macbeth, the eponymous tragic hero of the play, tempted by prophecy and by ambition. Macbeth begins as this noble warrior, praised by the captain, praised by Duncan, but he ends the Act 1, remember, planning murder, planning regicide, the killing of the king. Now, there's a few key questions we can start asking ourselves, that we can start thinking about. Are the witches controlling Macbeth? Or do they just tempt him? Has he got a choice? Is he choosing to do what he's doing? Or is he being mysteriously, supernaturally controlled by those weird sisters, as they're known, the witches? Is Macbeth a good man being led astray by the witches? Or was the darkness always there, kind of waiting for a spark to ignite those dark ambitions? What about Lady Macbeth? How evil is she? Is she just ambitious? Do her actions excuse the behaviour of Macbeth? Kind of, who's to blame? And why is Shakespeare drawing our attention to deception? Why are false appearances so important in Act 1? Now, these are questions that don't have easy or straightforward answers, but they get us thinking about the play and thinking about it more deeply. We've got questions of ambition, of loyalty, temptation, guilt. These are timeless themes. Is it good to be ambitious? Should we always be loyal? How do we respond when we are tempted? Tempted by evil desires? What about guilt? Should we feel guilty? What effect does guilt have on us as human beings? These are the big questions, the big ideas of the play that you are going to be exploring and, I dare say, enjoying over the course of your study of Macbeth. So, thank you so much for listening. I hope that this episode has been useful. By listening to it, it's going to help you be successful in answering the exam preparation booklet questions, of course, but it's also going to set you up in term 3, half term 2, really going to give you a great head start as you launch yourself into this incredible world, the dark, mysterious, unsettling world of Shakespeare's Macbeth. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.